Today, finding a partner takes a few swipes on a phone. 50,000 years ago, it could get you killed. The person you wanted might belong to a rival group. A group that treated strangers as threats first and asked questions never. And yet, ancient humans figured it out. They developed ways to attract partners and signal interest that were so effective that some of them are still working inside you right now without you even realizing it. Before ancient humans could find a partner, they had to solve a problem that nobody in the modern world ever thinks about. There were not enough people. Ancient human groups were small, typically between 20 and 50 people. And in a group that small, most of the people your age were either your relatives or people you had grown up with your entire life. Options were extremely limited. This meant that finding a partner almost always required going outside your own group. And going outside your group in the ancient world was genuinely dangerous. Strangers were threats. Unknown faces meant unknown intentions. Walking toward a group of people you had never met before required a level of courage that most modern people will never need in their entire lives. So ancient humans developed the first and most important dating skill they ever had: the ability to signal that they were not a threat before they ever got close enough to speak. Researchers studying ancient human remains found evidence of specific behaviors that appeared consistently across groups separated by thousands of miles. Deliberate slowing of movement when approaching strangers. Open hand gestures. Eye contact held just long enough to show confidence, but not so long as to seem aggressive. These were not random behaviors. They were a universal language of safe approach that ancient humans developed specifically because finding a partner required getting close to people who had every reason to kill you first. But getting close was only the beginning. Because once ancient humans were near enough to interact, they needed something else entirely. And what they used will genuinely surprise you. Ancient humans had no expensive clothes, no cars, no impressive jobs to mention. The things that signal status and attractiveness in the modern world did not exist. So what did they use instead? Skill. Not talked about skill, not rumored skill. Demonstrated skill performed directly in front of the person they were trying to attract. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer communities found something that appears consistently across every group ever studied. The most attractive person in any ancient group was not the best looking. It was the person who could do things others could not. The hunter who read animal tracks in a way nobody else could match. The person who could start a fire in conditions that defeated everyone around them. The healer who knew exactly which plant to use when someone was sick. These skills were not just impressive. They were proof of something ancient humans valued above almost everything else: survival value. A partner who could do things you could not do made your own survival more likely. And the ancient brain rewarded that recognition with a powerful attraction response that had nothing to do with appearance. Here is the twist. This is still happening today. Research on modern attraction consistently finds that demonstrated competence in almost any field triggers the same response. Watching someone genuinely master something makes them more attractive to observers regardless of how they look. The ancient brain cannot tell the difference between watching someone track an animal and watching someone perform a skill at a level that clearly separates them from everyone else in the room. You are not attracted to talent because it is impressive. You are attracted to it because your ancient brain still reads it as survival value, exactly the way it did 50,000 years ago around a fire in the open grassland. But skill alone was never enough. Because ancient humans also needed a way to attract partners from distances too far to demonstrate anything at all. And what they came up with for that is something nobody expected. Ancient humans could not text. They could not send a photo. They could not communicate anything about themselves to someone they had never met across a significant distance, except through what they wore. Archaeologists have found personal ornaments, shell beads, carved bone pendants, animal teeth worn as jewelry, at ancient sites going back over 70,000 years. And for a long time, researchers assumed these were simply decorative, that ancient humans made them because they liked how they looked. But the location of these ornaments told a different story. Many of them were made from materials that did not exist anywhere near where they were found. Shells from coastal areas turning up hundreds of miles inland. Specific stones carved into beads found far from the only places that stone naturally occurs. Someone carried these objects across enormous distances, or traded them through multiple groups over long periods of time, which means they were valuable enough to be worth that effort. And the reason they were valuable was not decoration, they were information. A shell bead from a coastal area worn by someone living far inland told everyone who saw it one specific thing. This person has connections. They are part of a network that reaches further than your own group. They have access to things you do not have access to. In a world where resources and information were the difference between surviving a hard winter and not, that signal was enormously attractive. Ancient humans were not wearing jewelry to look pretty. They were advertising their social network, their reach, their value as a partner. And researchers found something even more interesting hidden inside these ornaments. Something that changes the entire picture of how ancient humans found each other. Ancient humans did not find partners through random encounters. They organized it. Across archaeological sites from Europe to Africa to Australia, researchers found evidence of large seasonal gatherings where multiple separate groups came together at specific locations at specific times of year. These were not accidental meetings. They were planned, organized around natural landmarks, seasonal food sources, or specific geographical locations that multiple groups knew about and traveled toward deliberately. At these gatherings, ancient humans did things they never did in their daily survival routine. They decorated themselves more elaborately than usual. They performed. They danced. They competed in ways that displayed physical ability and skill to the largest possible audience. Researchers studying ancient ochre, a red pigment found at sites across Africa, found that its use increased dramatically at locations associated with these large gatherings. Ancient humans were applying color to their skin and bodies specifically for these events. Not for camouflage, not for any practical purpose. To be seen, to stand out, to signal something about themselves to people from other groups who had never seen them before. This is the oldest form of dating event in human history. A seasonal gathering where the entire point was to meet people from outside your group, display yourself as attractively as possible, and make connections that might lead to partnership. But here is the part of these gatherings that most people never hear about. And it is the darkest and most fascinating twist in this entire story. Ancient humans brought something to these gatherings that had nothing to do with survival and everything to do with attraction. Music. The oldest musical instruments ever found are bone flutes dating back over 40,000 years, carved from the hollow bones of birds and large animals with carefully placed holes that produce specific notes. These were not accidental objects. They required real skill and real time to make. Someone sat down and deliberately constructed an object whose only purpose was to produce sound. Researchers studying the effect of music on attraction found something that directly connects to why ancient humans brought instruments to seasonal gatherings. Music synchronizes the brains of people listening to it together. When a group of people hear the same rhythm, their neural activity begins to align. They start moving the same way, breathing at similar rates. Their bodies begin to operate in a loose coordination that creates a powerful feeling of connection with the people around them. Ancient humans at seasonal gatherings who experienced this together were not just entertained. They were being neurologically connected to strangers from other groups in a way that made those strangers feel familiar and safe. Music was dissolving the threat response that meeting unknown people naturally triggered. And the person making the music, the one producing the sound that was creating this effect in everyone around them, was the most visible and most socially powerful person at the gathering, attracting attention from every direction without needing to approach anyone at all. 40,000 years before anyone invented a stage or a concert venue, ancient humans had already figured out that music and attraction were connected in a way that worked on something deeper than conscious preference. But none of any of this mattered if ancient humans could not communicate interest once they had found someone worth pursuing. And how they did that reveals something about human behavior that has not changed at all. Ancient humans had no shared language with members of other groups. Words that meant one thing in one group meant something completely different or nothing at all in another. Verbal communication across group boundaries was severely limited, so attraction had to be communicated in a language everyone could read, and that language was the body. Researchers studying nonverbal communication found that the signals humans use to indicate romantic interest are almost completely universal across cultures that have had no contact with each other. Prolonged eye contact followed by looking away. Turning the body towards someone while appearing to face elsewhere. Touching the face or hair when in proximity to someone attractive. Mirroring the posture and movements of the person you are interested in without realizing you are doing it. These behaviors appear in every human culture ever studied, in isolated tribes with no outside contact, in ancient art depicting social interactions. In the behavior of modern people who have never been taught any of this consciously, they are not learned. They are built in. Ancient humans communicating interest to someone from a completely different group with no shared words relied on exactly these signals. And the people who read them correctly and responded to them skillfully were the ones who successfully found partners outside their own group. Every time you catch someone's eye across a room and feel something shift in the interaction without a single word being spoken, you are using the exact same system ancient humans used to navigate the most important social moments of their lives. So here is the full picture of how ancient humans dated. They approached strangers using signals of safety, developed specifically to cross the line between groups that treated each other as threats. They demonstrated skill in front of people they wanted to attract, because skill meant survival value and survival value meant everything. They wore objects that advertised their social connections and their reach. They organized seasonal gatherings specifically designed for meeting partners from outside their own group. They used music to dissolve the threat response that strangers naturally triggered. And they communicated interest through body language so universal that no shared words were ever required. None of this is ancient history in the way most people think of ancient history. Every single one of these systems is still running inside you. The pull towards someone who is genuinely good at something. The way music makes strangers feel familiar. The signals your body sends and reads without your conscious involvement. Ancient humans had no apps, no profiles, no algorithms deciding who was compatible with who. They had biology that was refined over hundreds of thousands of years to solve exactly this problem. And it worked well enough that you are here right now, which means at some point in your family's history, someone approached a stranger from another group, took a real risk, and it worked out. If this made you see attraction completely differently, subscribe. And drop a comment telling me which part of ancient dating you think still works the best today. Because honestly, the answer might surprise you.